Hey there, I'm srcmake and welcome to part C of the Java series, where we are going to see how Java is used as an API programming language, and we're going to do this by making a Spring project for spring.io. Now, as usual, I've got my website here, and it's got resources that you'll need. There are going to be links below this video for all this stuff, so go ahead and click the links when it's time to do so, and hit the subscribe button for this YouTube channel. Now, spring.io is a website, and Spring is basically a plugin or a library, whatever you'd like to call it, for Java. And basically, remember how we just did Maven and Gradle videos? If you don't know about that, then go ahead and catch up. Maven and Gradle are basically build tools for Java to manage project dependencies. And one of the useful things about them is that they allow you to manage the plugins for you for all your projects. And one plugin you can specify is called Spring. Now, Spring allows Java to be used as an API. So far in this series, what we've been doing is we've been compiling code. So we write Java code, and then we compile it into this executable file. It's called a class file. And when we want to run that file, what we do is we say Java and the class name, the class file, we run it. And that's not really good for API. So Spring helps us out by making Java a good API programming language. And we're going to see how that works. So as usual, I've got my Ubuntu 16.04 virtual machine running, and we are going to be doing this Spring project. So this is the website. Again, link will be below the video. But what we're going to do is we're basically going to create a new project just to test Spring out. So cd Spring, and we can come in here. Let me just lower this. Okay, perfect. So we're going to be doing the Spring project, and I'll sort of walk you through it just to make sure that it works for us, but I'll be a little quick about it. So what we're going to build, oh, by the way, if you don't know what an API is, it's basically a function over the internet. You want your Java code to exist on some server over the internet. It can be called by some program or someone, whoever developer wants to use it, and it'll return whatever they need to be returned, or it'll do whatever you need to do. Maybe it'll update a database or something like that, and they don't even need something, but that's what APIs are. Again, I've got a topic on this on my website, so let's get through this service. What you'll build, we're going to build an HTTP GET service, which is basically an API, and it's going to respond with some content. And what you'll need, 15 minutes, a text editor or IDE, and Gradle or Maven. So we're going to be using Maven, and we set that up in the last video. So start from scratch or skip to the basics. We are going to start from scratch. So we're going to have to make this Maven project. And let's say cd Maven. Actually, let's make a directory called Maven, and let's cd Maven. Just to make sure, in case someone else wants to use Gradle or do it from scratch, then they can do it from scratch. But we sort of already know how Maven works. So what they want us to do is, instead of using Maven arch generate, they just want us to create a directory using Maven style. So we're going to create the directory structure using this. And in Maven, you've got the source folder. It's got a main file, and it's got some Java code inside of it. And that is the structure. Again, you can see the pretty picture right here of the folder structure. So let's go back here. And this is the root of our project right now. So we are going to need a Pom XML file. So let's touch Pom XML. And again, the Pom XML file is basically the manifest file, which describes what our project needs. So let's open this with gedit, and let's paste it. And let's look through it really quickly just to make sure we know what's going on. So let me move this a bit over. I might be blocking some of it. Let me take a quick look. Okay, no, we're good right now. So XML version, blah, 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 model version, and we see the group ID is org Spring Framework, artifact ID, and version. These are the three things you need to set when you make a Maven project. So they set it for us, whatever. Parent is stuff. You've got dependencies, and this looks a little bit important. Now, the dependencies are like the libraries that we need for the project, but they set this up for us. So Spring Framework.boot, Spring Boot Starter Web, and this is another thing, Spring Boot Starter Test, and a JSON pathway dependency. So if we scroll down a little bit more, we can see Maven boot plugin for Spring is also something that we need, and we've got a repository here for the Spring, I guess, library version they're using. I don't know. But that's the Pom XML file, which is going to define the manifest for our project. Next, do we need to do anything? Okay, so that's it. Well, is that really it? It feels like really simple. So next thing we're going to do is create a resource representation class. Now that you've set up the project and built a system, you can create your web service. Begin the project by thinking about your service interactions. So what we're doing is we're making a get method, so a get API, which basically means the user is going to query our Java code, and our Java code is supposed to return something to them. That's get. So get requests for a /greeting path, and there could be a name parameter, and it should return a 200 OK response, which is the status code. So this is what should be returned to them. Okay, we can think about that's what we want our API to do, so we're planning for that. Now we need to make a main file, of course. Well, it's not actually called main, but it's, you know what it is for us. So we need to create this greeting.java file in the source code, main, java, hello, and let's create a, it's called greeting.java file. And inside of it, we're going to have the following code. And let's look it over really quickly. So our, greeting.java file is, of course, the class is called greeting because that's required, because that's the file name. So we've got an ID, which is a long, and we've got string name content, which sort of corresponds to what they were trying to do right here, right? ID and content are the two return types. So we've got a public greeting constructor that is going to accept an ID and a string content. And it's going to set the class's ID and content equal to what the constructor is getting, basic class stuff. So when we construct a greeting class, it's going to set these two. And we've got a getter, which is going to get the ID if someone asks for it. And we've got a getter for the content. So really basic class. And next, we're going to create a resource controller that will serve these greetings. So the greeting is basically, the greeting class is what we want to return. It's going to handle everything for the greeting. And now we want to create something called the greeting controller.java. So we can't touch it because we're not in that directory. So let's just create an empty document named greeting controller.java. And we will copy this code and look at it. Copy paste. And package is hello. Now in this file, we need to import a bunch of stuff from Spring because this Java class was just like some basic stuff, right? You didn't need anything special. But in this one, we need all of this Spring stuff so that we can use Spring's special features. Now let's see what's happening here. We've got class greeting controller here. And obviously, that's the class name because that's what the file name is. Now, inside of this, we've got two private variables. One is string template, which is hello and a %sign. And we've got another one that's atomic long counter. So atomic long we did not talk about, but in the context of this situation, since I did this tutorial before, I'll tell you. It is a type which is basically a long, which is, an 8-byte integer. And what it does is it sort of stores the count for you, like, over the API. So remember, this API is being called a bunch of times, and it exists on the server. Instead of, what happens when we usually do our code? We compile the code, and then it's got this standalone executable that is just does its own thing every single time it gets called. The exact same thing. But now our code exists on a server, and we want it to have some functionality that persists. And atomic long is good for that, and you'll see how that works. So the next thing we do is we have a greeting class type that is going to be called greeting. So This is really weird syntax. Let's look this over. So what is all this? This is so weird. Let's make this a little bit long so that we can see it all on one line. So we've got this. Okay, it's public, right? Let's break it down word by word. It's public. It's a function named greeting. That's the function name. And it's got two parameters. The first parameter is this @request_param value equals name, default equals world. And you've got this string name, which isn't actually a comma, which is sort of weird. But just take it for granted that's how you use it. And the type of this function is, the return type of this function is a greeting class object, which is really complicated compared to what we've been doing, but just sort of learn the syntax for now. I don't know how to explain this really well. And we can keep this on one line too, just to make it easier to view. So what is this returning? It's returning a new greeting object. And what is it passing? Well, what does greeting have again? Greeting, when you initialize it, it needs an ID and it needs a string content. And it's going to pass counter, which is this, that increment and get. So remember, this is a Java API that exists on the server that we want to have persistence. So when I said before that atomic long is a type, it is a type that is going to remember what the count is at. So counter is going to increment and get, which basically means it's going to start at 1. Next time this function is called, it's going to be 2. Next time it's called, it's going to be 3. That is what this value is going to be. And the next thing is going to be string.format template name. So the string name that's getting passed, I guess, is going to be what's coming from the parameter. So remember, this is an API, and if you know about APIs, you know that there are parameters. When the API gets called, the base URL, you can specify the name parameter for the API. And if it is specified, then it is going to be this value right here in the request param. But if it's not specified, then the default, let's say, is srcmake. Hello from srcmake again, as usual. And that's going to be the string name. So it's going to format the template name, and template is going to be this. So it's going to say, okay, string.format hello %s. And what's in %s? Well, it's going to be name. Well, what's name? Well, name is going to be, if they passed the parameter name, then use that. And if they didn't, then say from srcmake. So it's a little complicated. Just try to remember the syntax. I sort of just explained it. I don't want to harp on this too much. And that's the controller. You can see what it is. You can see what they say for this request mapping and all this. I didn't talk about this, but request mapping / greeting is going to say that this function, greeting is going to control the / greeting path on our API. And we can see that @rest controller is basically going to mark this class as part of the API. So this class needs to have this functionality because there might be stuff in here. That's what this annotation means. So that's it. You can read more about it if you want. Next thing we got to do is to make the application executable. Now, did we have main yet in this? No, we didn't. Remember, all programs start from main. And they set this up by saying we're going to make an application.java file. So let's create that. So far we made the greeting response class. We made the controller for that class. And now we're going to create main, which is going to handle every time our API is called. You know, everything starts from main. So let's copy this code, and we're going to look at what happens. Paste. So we're importing some Spring Framework stuff because we need it in the class. We're saying, okay, this is a Spring Boot application. So, you know, make sure you know about that main. It's an annotation. And we've got, this is our standard main startup line, and Spring application.run application.class args. So that's just like the standard application, I guess. So this is going to start the API up, and it's basically going to make it stay on. Main is going to stay on, and then when one of our paths gets called, which is going to be /greeting, then our greeting controller class is going to get called, and it's going to handle everything. Right now, it said it inside this documentation, but I didn't say it. This add request mapping is going to handle get, post, put, and delete for us. So yeah, that's basically it. If you want to read the details, then go ahead, but this is basically what you want to do. So right now, if you wanted to change this to make it a little special for your own purposes, you could change this stuff up to whatever you need to. Like, change the greeting, which is going to be the response, and change the controller to be specifically whatever you need it to do. And let's test it. So if you're using Gradle, boot or run, wait, we didn't test it. If you're using Maven, you can run using this. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and test this out. We already talked enough about it. Spring boot run. Okay. Okay. Well, what are we supposed to do? You can run the application Gradle. Using Gradle, you can do this. Or you can build a jar file. Okay. I feel like we don't have this stuff in our project. But okay. Okay, so let's go back and see what went wrong. Because we definitely do not have like the standard Maven stuff here. Were we supposed to Java it? Okay. Let's see what we forgot, because I must have forgotten something. How to complete this guide. We did not do anything, so first you set up the basic. You can use any build system. If you're not familiar. Project directory. So you use this. You create the Pom XML. Okay, I'm going to pause the video while I figure this out because I don't want to waste too much time. So pause. Okay, we're back. So I figured out the issue after a lot of heartache, and the problem is that the tutorial lies to us. That's actually exactly the problem. This command is not going to work. So you scroll up and you look at their building Java projects with Maven article, and you'll say, okay, let's see how they do it in this other project. So you scroll down and you'll see that what they do is they maven.package or they maven.compile. They don't use this /men. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not like the master of Maven, so it would have been really nice if they just kept it really simple, but they didn't. So back in our Maven project, in the root directory, we are going to open a terminal, and let's move this back down here. I have to do a little bit of testing, so things are all over the place right now. So let's try Maven. I'm actually not sure which one of these it is. Let's do maven.package, I think. So let's wait for a second. This is going to take a bit. Oh, it actually did not take long at all. So now finally you can see that we've got this target/gs rest service.1.0.jar. So it was maven.package, not maven./maven clean package and all this. I have no idea why they would tell you to use that if these bash scripts don't exist. It's just a little frustrating. This is like supposed to be a really good article to teach this service, and they make it complicated. Anyway, now we're going to run the service. So we compiled our Java code into these .jar packages, but we want to actually use it. So what we're going to do is, of course, instead of we're using the Java command, and it's going to run. Now, we've never seen this before, but basically right now this terminal is running this jar package, and it's making our terminal act like a server. So our terminal is acting like a server right now, and it's going to be able to accept requests. Now to test this, we're going to go to localhost 8080, which is basically the domain name we're going to use, port 8080/greeting. We're going to open this link in a new tab, and you can see that we get this ID and content like expected, because remember, the greeting was an ID and a content. And remember atomic long counter? Well, it's going to up increment ID every single time that the server is called, because it's that type of variable, because it's not it's persisting data. Remember, it's not just building a standalone execution that's going to do the same thing over and over. It's remembering. So that is Spring. Basically, that's how you make a API with Java using Spring. You saw the tutorial. Was it a little complicated? Yes. Hopefully I made it easier. But just to reiterate everything one more time, you can go make the project the same way we did. We've got three things. Application.java is going to be our main startup, and it's going to just start the program. We've got this greeting class, which is going to have the type of return content that we're going to see. It's basically going to hold our ID and content, and it's going to just be that kind of class that holds the response. And finally, we've got the greeting controller that you saw with the Spring stuff in it. And it's got this atomic long counter, which actually isn't part of Spring, but it's a Java feature, and you can write some function that does something for you. So that is APIs using Spring. Eventually, we are going to do a Heroku tutorial to actually make this live on a cloud server instead of just testing locally. But that's how you do a Java project as an API using Spring. It's really popular. The tutorial obviously isn't that great, but hopefully this tutorial takes care of all the bugs. So I'm srcmake. This has been part C of the Java series. Hit the subscribe button. Go to the website if you need any of these resources. I'll have it up to date. Thanks for watching.